I've always liked the visas. Hang on, let me. I've always liked the visas. I have always been in favor of the visas. Like that's why we have them. I have many H-1B visas on my properties. First of all, what does that mean?
It's just like saying these are my blacks.
Yeah.
Like his workers on his property have
visas.
H-1B visas.
They're just a visa.
Sheesh.
I've been a believer in H-1B. I've used it many times. What does that mean? It's a great program.
All right. So what his people are arguing here is that he speaks to a large swath of Americans and they understand that language and we don't because maybe we have risen above it. I don't know.
I mean, I understand what he means. Like, I understand what he means, but also it's like, we're referring to people now. It's just like they're like, what visa they're on. Like, that's a green card. That's an H-1B. That's a T-PAT or
That's a naturalized.
Temporary protection.
It's a degree of white privilege that I don't think I say he has like peak white privilege.
I used to dream militant dreams. I used to dream radical dreams.
I don't know if y'all saw the arguments about the H-1B visas, right? So it started out with Elon Musk being recorded saying something along the lines of like Americans are too stupid to do these tech jobs, which is why we need H-1B visas to bring in smarter people from other countries. Vivek Ramaswamy jumped in it and pretty much said the same thing on Twitter, was that American culture is terrible, that it only supports and uplifts like jocks and the homecoming queen is what he pointed out, instead of the math, athlete or a math nerd or whatever, or, the person that's good at math.
Just
Incel talk, loser talk. I don't know about y'all, but I mean, like, I'm a nerd. I feel like I'm a nerd. Like, I in middle school and high school, I used to love to read. I was that girl that was going around to everybody like, did you read this in the news? Like, I had voter registration drives at school. Like, I was that nerd, and I won homecoming queen. So I mean, like I don't. If you were actually living real life, you wouldn't be saying stuff like this. But we all know that Elon and Vivek are just like fake. But Trump had to jump in because Trump has been saying that we need to get rid of all immigrants of all kinds. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You need to get out of this country. But on this particular instance, because his sugar daddy Elon Musk said it, he had to jump on it. So Trump said, we need these people coming in. We need these H-1B visa people coming in. That's all.
So he softened his tone he softened his rhetoric on immigration. Interesting.
Softened his rhetoric, but of course that comes at a cost. Well, maybe slightly. There's been some reporting that there are some MAGA.
Oh, you got it right.
MAGA voters who are saying that they regret voting for Trump now, that they got the bait and switch, that they feel scammed, that they feel like Trump lied to them about America First, about immigration, etc. Here are some things that they're saying. One person said, I was supporting him, but his recent statements on H-1B ruined it for me. He completely flipped on the issue, and to me, it looks like he's caving to the pressure from big tech and Elon Musk. We did not vote for him to increase legal immigration. We don't need many more people coming in, like he said. It's a slap in the face to his voters, to be honest. It's obvious this isn't even a country anymore. It's just an economic zone to be exploited. They're like so close, but yet they're not there yet.
I was going to say that last line is sounding very left.
So close.
Like, they sound anti-capitalist right there.
like it's crazy how close these MAGA voters are to like realizing that it's always been a lie. Like it's the meme like of the astronauts looking at the Earth and the dude in the back with the gun. It's like, oh, it's been round this whole time or whatever. It's like, yeah, like you you knew this man was lying to you from the jump. His own wife is an immigrant. His own kids are immigrants. Elon, Mr. He got 50 kids. All of his kids ain't American. He ain't American. Like, we knew that these people were lying from the jump, and yet they still went out.
I don't think his voters see him as liars. I see him as a liar, though. But anyone who can say, like, the statement that we just saw on the screen, like, anybody who could hear him say something like that, like, hear any politician, let alone the president, talk like that about a program or an issue or anything, and still believe that this is the best person to be president, like, I really question their, just their brain, like, just their mental capacity to reason.
Mental health.
Because what he said, like, put that on the screen. Like, read out loud what he said, because that's how he talks about everything. Like, read that.
Yeah, so, on our screen for folks who are just listening, this is a Trump statement. I've always liked the visas. Hang on, let me. I've always liked the visas. I have always been in favor of the visas. Like, that's why we have them. I have many H-1B visas on my properties. First of all, what does that mean?
It's just like saying, these are my blacks. Yeah. Like, his workers on his property have H-1B visas.
They're just a visa. I've been a believer in H-1B. I've used it many times. What does that mean? It's a great program.
All right. So what his people are arguing here is that he speaks to a large swath of Americans, and they understand that language, and we don't, because maybe we have risen above it. I don't know.
I mean, I understand what he means. Like, I understand what he means, but also it's like, we're referring to people now. It's just like they're like, what visa they're on. Like, that's a green card. That's an H-1B. That's a T-PAT or
that's a naturalized.
Temporary protection.
It's a degree of white privilege that I don't think I say he has like peak white privilege, where a person of any president of color, President Obama, he couldn't go out and speak in broken English and slang. like what did he like get him out of here right now? But Trump does it, and like these people still grovel and marvel at it. It's like, wow, he's such a. It's like,
I don't think that's new. I think when like Bush was president, and again, I was like very
Bush
very
wasn't
young.
A felon.
But like when Bush was president, like people were like, he talked with that drawl, that Texan accent. That's what like people were drawn to, and I guess I get it. I do get it. But also it comes to a point where it's like, okay, at what point do we draw the line of like, this man is just. Like, I don't think Bush was necessarily like I think he was an idiot, but he wasn't like dumb. Like, he was an educated person.
We thought he was an idiot until we met Trump.
People who are on H-1B visas are essentially like indentured servants. Like, they're brought here to work at a specific place, doing a specific thing for specific people. And if they decide not to, if they get on that person's nerves or whatever one time or whatever, they could be easily deported. Like, I mean, I think we understand this sort of dynamic as just like black people and just like living in an at-will work state where you can be working one day and then get fired on your day off just because. Like, these people aren't necessarily, while they're making quote unquote good money, like working like tech jobs, maybe making like $100,000 maybe, but it's also like the money isn't good money because they can be easily fired, they can be easily deported, and then it's all up in flames. It's going to take years for them to be able to come back once they get deported or they have any sort of issue. And now even more so, I think, with Trump threatening to get rid of the 14th Amendment and all these other crazy things with immigration that they're planning on doing. We need more black and brown solidarity. Like, we're literally living the same, like, we're going through the same things, I feel like they're very similar. Maybe not, I'm not saying 100% the same, but I think that they are very similar in we're both being exploited. Some of us Black people being exploited for their labor, but also just their contributions to society and culture, our ideas, our brains, our likeness being exploited, and the exploitation of labor from immigrants.
I think in the activist community, we have this maybe about 75% worked out between Black and brown. There's still kinks here. We still have some differences, but we are able to communicate in a language of solidarity and work through those things in cases. Outside of that, in just the general political community or just in the general American culture, we are very far apart from having any show of solidarity. And I know that because when I talk to my fellow activists and I'm like, and they're telling me what's being said in their communities and I'm telling them what's being said in my community, it's like, we're very far apart. Because I have Black friends who strongly believe that immigrants from Mexico are the bane of Black existence in this country. And I'm like, you guys, when did you become a xenophobe? Like, white supremacy is the issue. Like, they're not the ones doing this to us. And it's like, so, and they will share that in their community, they have people who hold these anti-Black views as well. So we are very far apart here.
Yeah, definitely heard that from, like, with my job and working with immigrant communities as well. Like, I think I said this on a previous episode where I showed a video of Fannie Lou Hamer and folks coming up to me and was like, well, one, I didn't know that story. I didn't know about Fannie Lou Hamer, but also, like, as an immigrant, I didn't and don't, and trying to understand the actual, like, history and like plight that like Black people went through in this country. I just don't know.
So imagine when you take it out of public schools and people come here and they learn.
You posted about that, didn't you?
I did.
I was about to say, this story feels familiar.
They learn Black history from movies and media, and they don't learn it from people who, the people's experiences, because that's been removed. Is going to further that divide.
Because I can understand why there are some Black and brown people that would have some sort of like clashing. One, again, like I said, I think that there are some immigrant people who just don't know, and from their ignorance brews misunderstanding. And I think with Black people, there's also some ignorance and misunderstanding. But I can understand where it's like, as Black people, we see immigrants coming in and making more money than you,
and then
or
don't
like
talk about the Black
being able to like get ahead more than you've been able to. And feeling like I'm being left out because of them, and not like I'm being left out because of this system that they didn't make. Right. Like, they're also stuck in the cog of this system of being, again, exploited, while they might be making what you might think more money than you. But again, their life isn't easy because they're here. They're literally slaves, essentially. And I want to play this clip of what Bernie Sanders said some years ago about this same program. I think this was in like early 2000s. We talked about it in the Senate when they were talking about, I think, reforming it at the time, or just bringing it about. I don't really know the history of H-1B visas and when it came about exactly. But this particular clip was after 9/11, I'm pretty sure, maybe a couple of years after 9/11. And again, them wanting to bring in more immigrants to work. And let's just hear what he has to say and then come back on the other side.
And these are corporations whose main argument is, we just can't find Americans to do this work, and we just need to go all over the world to bring people in. If you listen to them, they will tell you two things. First, in terms of low-skilled jobs, they say they need foreign workers to do the jobs that Americans just won't do. And then, Madam President, this is what really gets me. They tell us that they need more H-1B visas because Americans are just not smart enough to be computer professionals, engineers, university professors. Just can't find anybody to be a university professor. Accountants, I guess Americans don't add very well. We can't do that work. Financial analysis. Nurses, I guess we just don't have the capability of producing nurses. Psychologists, Americans, I guess, can't do that. Lawyers. My God, if there's anything the United States is capable of producing are lawyers, but I guess we need more lawyers to come into this country as well, and elementary school teachers. Madam President, I guess the young people who graduate college in America are not quite qualified to be school teachers. Now, Madam President, if Americans won't take low-skilled jobs that pay poverty-level wages, and presumably if they're not smart enough to do high-skilled jobs, I think the question we have to ask is what kind of jobs are going to be available for the American people. We can't do low-skilled jobs. We can't do high-skilled jobs. Hey, what's there for us? And I happen to think that the Congress should be spending a lot more time discussing this issue and making it easier for us to create decent-paying jobs for American workers instead of allowing corporate interests to drive wages down by importing more and more people into this country to do the work that Americans should be doing. And these are corporations whose main
summary of what he said there is he said that the bill that he was reading said that we need to bring in these H-1B visa or people on these visas because Americans he said that they said that Americans don't want to do low wage jobs, so low paying jobs. So now they're saying that we also can't have Americans doing high paying jobs. So and so then he lists professions that the bill is saying that we need more of in the States, and it was like elementary school teachers. He was like, I guess we're too dumb to teach our kids. Nurses, I guess we can't do that. Accountants, he was like, I guess Americans can't add. And he goes into a bunch of other like professions, and then he ends it with, well, if Americans can't do low paying jobs and we can't do high paying jobs, what jobs are there for American people? And so there was recently, because of this whole conversation, Bernie put out a statement where he said the main function of the H-1B visa program is not to hire the best and brightest, like Elon Musk and Vivek are trying to say, but rather to replace good-paying American jobs with low-wage indentured servants from abroad. The cheaper the labor they hire, the more money the billionaires make. And that's just it. Like, I think that's really the whole point of that's the whole point of Trump and them's like issue with immigration is that immigrants started coming over here and making lives for themselves and are like, okay, we deserve, better. Like, we've sat here and done what we needed to do, and you're still treating us like crap. Like, we deserve better. And how dare you come over here to America and ask to have something better? Because you're supposed to be here working for me until you pass out or I get tired of you. And so it's just hilarious seeing, again, the like MAGA side of like, we hate immigrants, having to mentally reconcile with what we've all been saying this entire time since 2016 or 2015, since it came down the elevator, is that we need escalator. We need immigrants. Like, they do good work. Like,
immigrants are people. First of all, this whole like, my parents are immigrants. So this whole thing about like who we want here and don't want here, like it's just, honestly, it's just beyond me. I mean, we're all human beings on Earth. And with the climate crisis especially, I feel like people will start to understand that America is not like this impenetrable fortress. Yeah. I guess especially the people who were born after 9/11. Like, we're not, they don't believe that anything that we see happening in the world could happen here. I know for me, like, I go back to this, but it was just such a big deal, like seeing that condo collapse. It was just like, damn. Like, I know that buildings fall all over the world, but I had never conceptualized what that was like and what caused it and everything. So to see that, I think the same thing for the other issues. And when we talk about like the type of people who can come to work, what type of, like you said, they're like a big part of his whole platform was they're coming over here taking your jobs, black jobs and all this. So now to flip the script and say, well, I guess they just hope that the same people who heard you say what you said during your campaigning and stuff, they won't be tuning into this part, because that's the other thing. Some people will see what's happening during elections, but they have no idea what's happening with Congress or rules coming from the executive branch and Supreme Court hearings being in, like, they have no idea none of this is happening, so they can't really make that connection. But yeah, the talking about the immigrants and stuff, it's just, I guess for me, it's personal, you know? Like, I was there. I remember when my mom was naturalized. It was the same year that Obama ran for office. So her first time voting was voting for Obama. It was a big deal, you know? So to see that and to see, like, the struggle she went through, she speaks English, but she has a very heavy accent. So to see that experience and know that, like, okay, like, most of my family is not from here. And then to, you know, get woke and become grown and get into politics and see how people talk about immigration and just who can and can't come. It's like, I mean, I am, you know, I'm not religious, but I'm Christian. So I'm just looking at it like, y'all ain't God. Like, you don't get to pick and choose. It's just beyond me, honestly. I guess this is why I like state politics more. Cause
Elon does think he's God. I mean, Elon thinks his seed needs to be spread across the world and have more and more children with his super DNA.
Yeah, the conservative movement has been able to effectively dehumanize immigrant populations in the country. Probably the worst it's been since the 1880s and the early 1900s, how they did Chinese Americans at that time and Asian Americans. And we're seeing a strong resurgence of that nativism. And it is not a whites only kind of thing. There are a lot of people of color, Black and Latinx people, who are very nativist. And I'm like, when did this happen? What was the programming that got everyone hooked? Because a lot of people's politics is kind of like, they're like, the immigrants are coming here taking up all the free programs, and then that's why there's no money for us.
I started hearing that about New York. Like, people were saying that immigrants were taking, like, welfare programs that were meant for us and stuff, and I'm immediately like, I don't even want to ask you where you heard that. Just stop right there.
I was hearing that talk in undergrad with people like, immigrants are taking our scholarships, and that's why, like, Black people are in student debt because all of the immigrants have, like, college scholarships.
Student debt because they give us loans with these ridiculous interest rates. That's exactly.
Like,
that's the actual reason.
People people have the rights, like build up maybe, but they're not, like, they're attaching it to the wrong solution. Like, they see the problem and attaching it to the wrong solution.
They're on track.
So the line of question I say, how many slaves did these immigrants own? How many prisons did they build? How many people did they lynch? Oh, none? They weren't involved in any of that. How many policies did they write? Did they gerrymander? Did they redline? Did the immigrants do any of this? Then we can't blame the immigrants for the situation that we're in. Like, even I agree that we may be pit against each other and forced into competition for certain crumbs from the capitalist table, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are the enemy. They are just being put into a negative situation as well. And instead of blaming the situation, people like to blame other players or people who are.
I used to dream militant dreams. I used to dream radical dreams.